Ladies and gentlemen, it is another episode of the Demons from Outer Space, so close to the last. I know it is a insane time to be alive. Dylan McCandless, Super DM64, joining me.
We are just racing to the finish line with all kinds of Infinity War-related content here on the Demons from Outer Space. And actually on my own channel, where I recently posted a Hulk-related video that you can check out if you fancy taking a nap.
Oh, wow. That's what an ad. What an ad, Jack. I just want to... The thing we're talking about tonight is a lot more directly connected to Infinity War than the last two videos we've both done on our channels, which were both Hulk related. You know, he's in Infinity War, but he probably won't be like the biggest character. I would imagine. I imagine the biggest character will be Thanos. And we talked about the Hulk first because the Hulk is like our favorite Marvel character. So
early reviews and reactions. Yeah, early reviews and reactions are in, and they're mostly very positive, and they lead me to believe that what Kevin Feige previously said is very true, and this is definitely Josh Brolin's movie.
Thank God. That's what I was hoping for. That's what I was excited about, was like the journey of Thanos and seeing him go across the cinematic universe we've seen built for 10 years and ripping it apart. And it sounds like that's exactly the movie they made, and I'm so excited. I'm seeing it tomorrow night. So the thing that we are talking about tonight is a lot, like I said, a lot more directly connected, and in fact, sort of the direct inspiration for the movie. This, everybody talks about like, oh, Infinity Gauntlet is the story that they are adapting, and yeah, but this comic that we're talking about tonight feels like the real story of the movie, because it's
right.
What's actually going on, the actual conflict.
If you went to read Infinity Gauntlet with no idea that there had been previous stuff that had led up to it, you might think, oh, it's going to start with Thanos trying to get the Infinity Gauntlet. Now, he's got all the stones at the beginning of that story.
Man. Thanos is in his shit.
What you really want to read is a little two-part story called Thanos Quest, which is what we will be reviewing tonight. And then if you wanted to be really thorough, you could read the Silver Surfer stuff that leads up to Infinity Gauntlet that bridges the gap in between Thanos Quest and that. But, that's a lot of reading. You ain't got time. I understand. The movie comes out Friday.
We all work and, have to play God of War, so we understand.
So in the meantime, though, this is only 2 issues. You can definitely cram this if you want to, or not. Doesn't really matter. It's not going to be very faithfully adapted, but it's a good story.
We're not saying this is like required reading for you to understand what the film will be saying. I think it's just interesting to see what they probably pulled some inspiration from conceptually.
Yeah. I will say this: I've seen a lot of lists on like YouTube that are like, "Here's the top 5 MCU movies that you need to make sure you watch before you watch Infinity War." Like if you're a newbie, listen to me. I'm sorry. You need to watch all 18 of them. If that means not going to the theater,
you have to choose.
If that means not going to see Infinity War for a few weeks, then I'm sorry. You've had 10 years. And the check is due. But anyway.
Yeah, like I said, you should either watch all of them or none of them if you're new to this, because I think if you need to either be completely caught up or just go in fresh and find out if you even like any of this, and wait and see what happens. Or start with the comics, like as most people did, and. Well, not most people.
I don't know about most people.
That's erroneous to say now.
Not anymore. But I think about this sometimes. For so many years, like the general public knew, like 5 DC superheroes off the top of their head and only 2 Marvel ones, and I feel like we're approaching a point in history where they're going to be like, oh yeah, I love fucking Groot, the Batman. Who? It's going to be weird. It's going to be really weird. But
a comic book nerd's biggest job is explaining that Marvel and DC are different things and that they are not the same universe.
Right. It's a different company, essentially.
So when you explain that Superman can't fight Iron Man, people get confused as to like, well, why not? And it's like, well, because they can't.
And then they've done crossovers over the years, so that makes it more confusing, because then they're like, but I went to my local comic shop and I saw an issue where Batman was with the Punisher. And I'm like, oh, that's, What about the time that Carnage teamed up with the Joker for 2 seconds? Don't ask me about that. That's a whole other...
It doesn't exist. It's fake. It's like when Hela pushes that Infinity Gauntlet over in Odin's treasure room. So yeah, Thanos fake. Quest. The reason why this is more directly tied in with Infinity War is because it is him actually collecting the stones. It starts out with him coming up with the idea of gathering the stones. Maybe there was another comic somewhere where he was like, oh, I have a great fucking idea. But it seems like this is like the inception point as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So the Infinity Gems, as they're known in the comics, which even at the beginning of this comic are not called Infinity Gems, they're originally just called Soul Gems.
Thanos is the one who names them Infinity Gems, because he looked into the Infinity Well to get the idea for using them for this.
Yeah, they had been kicking around for a while. Adam Warlock had his hands on the Soul already at one point, and then it passed to whoever has it in this comic. I don't remember which one had Soul.
The Soul Stone was the in-betweener. He was the one who was in the prison by Chaos and Order.
Right. So they had already been a thing. But what's weird in the comic version is nobody knew how powerful they actually were until Thanos stared into the Infinity Well and was like, oh, I've discovered the secret, which is weird coming from, being familiar with the MCU, because in the MCU it seems like everybody and their brother knows the story of the Infinity Stones.
Right, it's so like this long-established idea that if you get all of them together, you'll have awesome power. But in this, everybody seems to think that they're all just like these trinkets that just come from the beginning of time and that they're just kind of nice to have. But Thanos is the only one who's like, nah, if I get all these together, I can do anything. And the fact that he describes it as a secret is the thing that definitely threw me off, I'll agree, because of the familiarity with the concept that we all have now. But it makes it feel fresh. Like, when I read the comic, I didn't feel like I was just reading, like, just the source material for a thing that I'm going to go see tomorrow. I felt like I was seeing, obviously it's the same idea, but it's somebody else explaining it and developing it and using it in a...
Well, what you're seeing is Jim Starlin, the writer who handled a lot of this cosmic stuff at Marvel and who actually created the character of Thanos. What you're seeing is him having the idea of the Infinity Gems and what they can do and sort of retconning it into existence by having Thanos go around and say, yes, it's always been this way, didn't you know?
Right, and then there's there's the idea that there was the being Infinity who was the beginning of all realities. And he's the most powerful. It is the most powerful, thing in the cosmos, and it's comprised of these 6 ideas that became these stones. So, Starlin does a great job of making it seem, not only like, oh, it's cool and badass, but it's also really like an interesting, and it seems like a worthwhile idea to explore and a quest to go on by our protagonist. Yes, protagonist Thanos. So he is our voice and our eyes through most of this, and man, that was cool. If it hadn't been that, I don't think this would have been really anything. If it had been like the Watcher or somebody else like overlooking Thanos and just watching him do a bunch of bad shit and just kind of like gloat about it, that would have been really, really boring. But it's a really emotional journey, and it's interesting. I've been going through the original Dragon Ball anime lately, and it almost felt like Thanos' quest for the 7 Dragon Balls,
Mm-hmm. And in a way.
And it's the same idea that what he ultimately gets at the end is not really the point. Like, it is, but it's more about what happens around it and what that does to him and what he does to everybody else around him. But it is all about him and what becomes of him once he gets what he wants. And obviously, that's not a spoiler. Infinity Gauntlet, the cover of it, is him with all fucking 6 stones in the fucking thing. So it's not like it's not like that's a spoiler. Like I said, it is about the journey and how it happens. And like what does he say when it's finally done? That was definitely what I was curious about. I was like, I've never read this before, so I'm wondering like what the hell he actually said when he got all 6 stones together.
It turned out what he said was cool. No.
Well, that's pretty much what I expected. Was just like, oh, awesome, this is perfect. But not at all. Well, I mean, initially, oh, this is pretty cool. But obviously, there's a lot more to it than that. And like I said, there's an emotional point to it. It's not just, well, got to introduce this idea so they can do a big crossover. Very much so, no. Like I said, there's a real point to this thing.
The other surprising thing is that the gauntlet itself isn't a thing in this comic. I don't know if he forged that afterwards during, like I said, there's a run in the Silver Surfer ongoing at the time that sort of connects this to Gauntlet. I don't know if he like forged it during that time period, but at the end of this comic, he's got all 6 stones, but they just sort of float around, like he'll hold his hand out and they'll be like floating, like he doesn't have them in anything yet.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering about as well. They all look identical. They're all green. And
yeah, they're all green in this comic, and then I think in Infinity War they are not Infinity War.
The Infinity Gauntlet comic, I'm pretty sure they all look like they traditionally are supposed to look. So that either gets retcon, or maybe he changes them because like we've been saying, he's really the first one in at this point in the Marvel universe to go like, oh my god, what if I put these things in a glove? That would be so wild.
All the bitches would be jealous of my jewelry.
No, he's really only interested in one bitch being jealous of his jewelry, and that bitch would be Lady Death. And that opening bit with the rat guy and the corpse-looking dude basically giving Thanos a whole bunch of shit in place of Death doing it was really powerful because they do a really good job, and I love things that do this, of developing a character without having that character speak or do anything. Just by discussing them as an idea. I love it when fiction does that, and it's really effective in this, especially given how it ends.
Yeah, if you're unaware, so Thanos had been a villain since 1973. In the Marvel universe. This story came out in 1990, by the way. He had been a villain since 73, and he had done all kinds of shenanigans. You know, he had been after the Cosmic Cube, I know, on at least one occasion. He had been a long-standing villainous force in the universe for all those years. He was directly ripped off from Darkseid, which is a funny story. Jim Starlin, who again created the character, actually wanted to base him off of a different new god, Metron, but like the guy who was like over him was like, well, if you're going to rip off the new gods, you might as well go for Darkseid because he's like, the biggest one. So that's why Thanos has the chair like Metron, but he's big and bulky like Darkseid. Anyway.
Yeah, and his personality is essentially Darkseid if Darkseid didn't just have his fire to obsess over all the time, Like, because Darkseid is essentially like Thanos if Thanos didn't have to go around and do stuff like this, But
yeah, well, in true Marvel fashion, though, I think Thanos is a much more like interesting and
I've come to
layered.
I've come to feel that way.
Than Darkseid is,
because he's got wants and desires. Like Darkseid is just kind of like he wants his equation, and like I said, he's got his fire and his hatred for Superman, and that's about it.
Yeah, he's just typical evil guy,
Yeah.
I said Drax.
Like the ultimate evil guy, but definitely, they've always had to do like really bizarre to make him more than that. But Thanos, it's always felt really, really natural.
Yeah, and he has one, like you said, he has wants and desires. He has things that he's after. He's very complex, that Thanos.
And it's all emotional stuff. Like I think that's why I think it's more. I personally enjoy it more. It's not, I want my equation to fucking, conquer all life. It's not an abstract idea. He wants his lady, man. He wants to be on equal footing with his lady. And he thinks that this is the way to go about it. And he thinks that he thinks he's all fucking hot too. He's like, oh, I got a fucking great idea, gal. You resurrected me and gave me all these powers to do this big task that you thought was going to take centuries, like this big love slave task. I'm going to do it in 2 fucking seconds.
Oh, that right. Yeah, so that's where I was getting to when I was sort of explaining the backstory to all this. So he had been a force in the comics for all that time, and at some point, Adam Warlock had killed him, like for good. But then Lady Death resurrected him, increased his power, and gave him the task of wiping out half the life in the universe because she was under the impression that there were too many people and that the balance was off and blah blah blah. So that's what
we're going to hold a tournament of all the different universes to see which one was the strongest, and then erase all the other ones. Oh wait, different thing. Sorry.
Oh yeah, yes. What's interesting is that whole like big Marvel DC crossover that led to the Amalgam universe is basically the same plot as that. I realized recently, and I'm like, huh.
They're always like these big ideas of, oh, there's too much life in the universe and it must be wiped out in order to balance things out. I mean, it's also not as directly that. It's also kind of the plot of Watchmen. You know, of like, there's just too many people, and there's just too many people causing too many problems. You know, for you fucking Genesis fans out there,
right.
It's just you know, there's too many of us. So that's often the ideas with these superhero, you know, big like destroy the universe or destroy the world plots, because ultimately superheroes are about, you know, saving individuals over supporting these grand abstract ideas. You know, they're about people being means unto themselves as opposed to the ends justifying the means. Fuck people, you know. So that's obviously the plot that gets played with a lot. But in this, it feels like it feels like the quest for the 7 Dragon Balls. It feels like an emotional reason to go off and explore the universe and show the universe who you are and figure out who you are by putting yourself up against the universe. And that's what was really cool about this. Like, this isn't easy for Thanos. Like, Thanos is not Darkseid power-wise. He can't just go around fucking blasting people with his Omega beams. He's just a big purple man in a big chair. You know, he's very smart, he's very crafty, he's got laser eyes and shit, but it's not, he can't just destroy anything by looking at it.
Again, in typical Marvel versus DC fashion, not as OP in terms of power, but just written more complexly.
He can get there, but it's like, you know, he's got to. His typical Thanos at his normal is, you know, a guy. The runner gives him trouble, you know.
He does have significant like power to where most heroes on Earth would have a problem fighting him, Infinity Gauntlet or no, because he's this cosmic being who can manipulate energy and things like that. But he's not. He's going up against beings in this who are more that than he is, and so he has to get pretty creative in order to attain all 6 gems.
And I thought, like I said, I think that was the really cool part of it. Like, you just get to see his ingenuity, and that makes him such a cooler villain for everybody to go up against, because we already appreciate not only what he's gone through, but how he did it. So, when he starts, you know, going like, hey, Hulk, I'm going to punch you in the face, you're like, oh, man, Thanos, you can just punch the Hulk in the face, but that other guy, you had to go through all that complex shit for. Like, that's, you know, we appreciate what that means relatively to what we saw. So, like I said, I think that's really well written and really smart. It's just a lot of smart decisions were made to set up this. Like we said, to say that it's an original concept is, you know, not really accurate. It's something that we've seen in a million things before. The idea of this, you know, universe bending power, but it's all about presentation and all about the actual journey of the character. And Thanos is wholly unique, you know. He's also not a villain who relishes in his evilness. He doesn't, you know, constantly sit around going, boo-ha-ha-ha. Like, he's constantly sitting around going, all right, what can I do to make this better? You know, what can I do to achieve my goals?
Right, how can I outsmart the Grandmaster?
Yeah, and that's not to say that he has no personality and that he doesn't have a sense of wit or anything. He does. He has some funny lines in this and some personality, but he's not like he's not an over the top power fucking, you know, just drunk villain. And I think that's such a wonderful breath of fresh air from any and all fantasy villains.
He comes across as more of a Vegeta than a Frieza. You know what I mean?
Vegeta started off, he was pretty power drunk, and Nappa more so, but Vegeta was still pretty much like, you know, I'm a fucking elite, Goku, you're fucking goddamn slave or some shit. It's like, all right, calm down, man.
Even to the point where
we're just having a street fight, all right?
Even to the point where later on in the comics, Thanos will also bounce between, you know, being on the good side and being on the bad side.
That's awesome. I think that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, at the end of Infinity Gauntlet, he just goes off and becomes a farmer. Like, it's,
he's an awesome character. And you get to know him inside and out, literally, in this fucking comic, because once he gets all the stones, he just kind of runs down the list and just starts kind of using them. And when he gets to the time stone, he literally just goes through, like, you just see Thanos from beginning to end. Like, it's like from a little Jiren looking baby to a fucking shriveled up grape in his armor. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I thought it was so fucked up how much he looked like Jiren when he was young. Did you notice that?
Somewhat, yeah. I think that's been retconned more recently.
That doesn't surprise me. It's a big leap from, like, although I think it makes more sense given his backstory and given how, like, altered he's been over the years, you know?
Yeah, because if you don't know, Thanos is originally a member of this race from the Marvel Comics called the Eternals, and they live on the Saturn's moon Titan. Thanos is from our solar system. How wild is that? And he had this genetic deformity that made him look like this other race that the Eternals hated, so he was sort of ostracized, and that's why he's evil.
That's why he's a mopey prick. Ugh.
Yeah.
But a fun-loving mopey prick.
He's a bit emo, isn't he?
He's very emo, but like I said, it makes him, like, endearing. It's the same reason why I like Kylo Ren, because he's got shit going on inside of him, you know?
Right. Oh god, they could totally make a fucking
Kylo Ren v Thanos. Oh god, that'd be awesome.
I was gonna say, they could totally make one of those, like, YouTube videos where you just take clips of Thanos and put that fucking what's that fucking song? That like super emo song, How Could This Happen to Me, or whatever.
Oh god, yeah. Like, you just put the hair on him that covers up the one eye, then the makeup and everything. Oh yeah, definitely. Perfect.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's perfect.
Perfection. So I feel we should get into some detail, since we do want to kind of keep this one a little shorter, since we're just talking about a 2-issue comic. We don't want to go overboard with this. And the detail I think we should get into are the individual people that he takes the stones from. Because, like I said, that's where the real ingenuity is.
He convinces Lady Death to let him go after the Infinity Stones, because even she isn't aware of what they're capable of at this point, despite the fact that she's a cosmic construct of great power. That's just how it happens. So he convinces her to let him go after them, because if he gets them, he can complete his task of wiping out half the life in the universe much more quickly. She agrees, and he sets off on his quest. And the first one he goes after is the Soul Stone, right?
Yeah, that's the one he gets from the In-Betweener. And it's somewhat the easiest, because he doesn't have to endure any physical pain in order to get it.
No, he basically just has to trick him. He's basically just pulling like a Tom Sawyer and tricking the In-Betweener into letting him paint his fence. Like, it's that kind of a thing, you know?
That's why I think it feels really old school fantasy, like because it's not just he goes to a guy and fights him and takes the stone. It's like at all, you know. It's very much so like, oh, here's this character that we're going to introduce and explain the backstory of, even if they're people we've seen in other Marvel comics before, and then Thanos just kind of has to deal with them in a clever way. And like I said, it feels very fantasy. It feels very Journey to the West. It feels very Dragon Ball. And yeah. I think that's fun, and it's unique because we're doing that with a bad guy. You know, the bad guy is our fantasy quest hero.
It basically feels like a Greek, like, mythological tale.
Yeah, it feels
space.
It's very Greek drama, and if you like that kind of stuff, and you've been like, and you look for that stuff in comics, this nails that. It feels very space opera.
And if you're into things that are set in space, then
a great deal of this is indeed set in space, so you won't be disappointed.
Space, weird alternate dimensions. It's trippy shit, man.
And do we have to tell you that the art is good? I mean, it is.
It's good art. It's good art. Classic cosmic Marvel.
Yeah, like it's dead on classic cosmic Marvel. Like, I was reading this and I was just like, why don't I just spend every second of my life looking at this stuff? And I'm like, oh yeah, because I have to go out and like live a life. In addition to this,
have to is a strong word.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem. Like, I feel like we've overemphasized the have to part of that, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway,
I feel like if we want to do, the whole human race could just kind of, veg out. Anyway.
I feel like Chaos and Order, for like, this is just me saying this is like, oh, if anybody picked this up and didn't know anything about Marvel, they don't do a great job of giving them much of a personality or any kind of like real presence. They just seem to be like, oh, they're the overlords of this sector, and they just let Thanos show up, you know?
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with their previous appearances, so
I've
I'm not
heard
sure.
of them in many comics. I have no idea what they're like how they act though. That's the problem I had. I wanted
Yeah.
Thanos to interact with them. I think
So
that they either should have done that in the first issue when he shows up there, or when the Grandmaster at the end fucking tries to fuck Thanos over. I feel like Chaos and Order should have been involved somehow, so that way they could have gotten some FaceTime.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's the one problem I had with it.
Like I said, I'm not familiar enough with them to know if they're if that was out of character or if they should have done something else with them.
They may have even addressed it, and I'm just not remembering. I don't think they did. Address oh, they didn't do anything because they wanted it to happen or something along those lines. I don't know, but regardless, it doesn't ruin anything. It's just a thing I wondered about. But I liked that Thanos was like, "Hey man, I'll help you out. This will be great," and he totally fucked him. And he does that. He does that a lot. He always tries to be like, "Let me offer you a hand first, before I try to stab you." And I think that's another reason why I like him, because he's an honorable guy, or at least he tries to present himself that way.
That's why I compared this to a Greek myth, because he feels very Odysseus. Odysseus doesn't punch the Cyclops in the face. He tricks the Cyclops. He gains the Cyclops' trust, and then he fucking fucks the Cyclops.
Oh,
not literally, but in a figurative sense.
So that one was definitely cool. Definitely not my favorite though. I think my favorite was definitely what happened with the runner. Was that issue 2 or issue 1? I think that was issue 2.
I don't remember. Yeah, which one did he go after the In-Betweener? Do you remember?
Yeah, you know what? I think I had the page open. Let me see. I do. So let me just click on it then.
All the rest of them are Elders of the Universe. I know that. And you know what? The In-Betweener might be one.
Oh, no. I mean, this is your favorite one. I can't believe you didn't remember. This is the Champion. He goes after the Champion next.
Oh, right. Yes, the Champion.
That was awesome.
Yeah, that was a great fight. That one is
a fight, but it had to be.
Well, it's both. It's a fight scene and it's a trickery. It's sort of both wrapped up in. That's just the nature of the Champion and who he is and what he does.
Yeah.
And he had the Power Stone.
Right, which that was what was making him just super powered, and he was constantly. The idea with him was that he was on this planet, and basically this planet was constantly changing hands in terms of who ruled it, and he just always fought whoever was trying to conquer it. That was the idea, and
right.
I just think that's awesome. That he doesn't care he doesn't care who he agrees with. He has no opinion on the matter. He just fights whoever is attacking.
Yeah, Thanos challenges. This is the brilliant thing. Thanos challenges him to a fight, tricks him into using his great might. Because if you don't know, the Champion of the Universe is the strongest guy in the universe. He's essentially Goku or Jiren or something like that. Actually, much more Goku, because he's all about wanting a worthy adversary. Anyway, he tricks him into using his great strength to destroy the planet that they're on. And then, because the Champion is unaware of how powerful the gem is that he's holding, he doesn't realize that it's amplifying his own power. Thanos tricks him into giving him the gem in exchange for a lift to another planet. And then he just drops him out of the atmosphere.
Right. I thought that was pretty cool. And he's didn't promise him a soft landing.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was great. It's definitely just a series of you think he's going to do one thing, the other guy seems to be stronger than Thanos, and you think, oh, okay, he's done. And then suddenly Thanos realizes that we realize that Thanos had a trump card. But it never feels boring or formulaic. It always feels hard and well-earned that, oh, Thanos genuinely set it up this way to happen. Although the runner was the one that I felt maybe he's kind of improvising here, more than he's letting on. Because the runner fucked him up. He destroyed his chair.
Yeah.
Thanos didn't want his chair destroyed. I feel like Thanos didn't go into that situation expecting or wanting his chair to be destroyed.
It was a nice chair. It was a very nice chair.
It was a really nice chair. That's why I don't think he intended for it to be destroyed. So I think that was on the fly, that he was like, all right, chair's destroyed. Time to fucking turn this guy into a fucking baby.
It was like a, I don't know, it's like a lazy boy, like a space lazy boy. Like, it was very nice.
I think it's more complex than a lazy boy. It seems to, because it serves the purpose of throne and just comfortable lounge chair, and that's really the goal, You don't want the Iron Throne from Game of Thrones, where it's not supposed to be comfortable, to represent the harrows of ruling. No, you want it to be chill, You gotta sit there for a while, you want a few cushions,
Fuck symbolism. My ass has to go in that chair.
Yeah, that's exactly my point. That's why I stopped watching Game of Thrones. There's no realism in that shit.
I think the third one was the gardener, right? Because you just reminded me, he uses the time gem to defeat the runner, and he gets the time gem from the gardener. So it goes in betweener, champion.
That was really sad. I thought that was the most emotional one.
That was, because the gardener's just a nice guy. He just wants to hang out on his...
He just wants to smoke his weed and tend his garden. Thanos comes in and ruins it.
He just wants to hang out on this planet and grow plants. Like, that's all he's about,
Thanos comes in and is just like, yeah, I'm gonna take your gem and make sure your garden is gone. Because he's also...
I mean, to be fair, Thanos isn't exactly like, happy about it. Like, he's like,
he was definitely bummed.
Gonna have to kill your garden. It's a great garden, but
But also the gardener didn't realize what he was doing. He just kind of was like, oh, my plants, they're like the prime of their lives. That's great, and staying there, that's awesome. He didn't realize that the time gem is that it controls all of time.
Mm-hmm.
I think he just thought he was freezing. It was just like a freezer, like a glorified freezer, essentially.
He just thought he was like, damn, I am like on my game right now.
My thumb is so fucking green, it's wild. The Hulk ain't got shit on me.
Like, my plant game is on point. Because that's how the gardener talks. And
yeah, he does in my head. Like, when I was reading him, that's what I heard. I don't know.
He was just like, shit, son, my garden is so fucking...
Damn, man, what you doing? Rolling up in here. This shit.
Oh shit! You better not step on my begonias, you son of a bitch. Thanos, how did he do it exactly?
Wikipedia. Let's find out exactly how he took it from the gardener, because I don't remember either.
I feel like he used the power.
The gardener attempts to kill him. That's one thing.
I feel like he
attempts to strangle him.
Yeah, it's a very like Tarantino-esque scene. It reminds me of the end of Kill Bill Volume 2 when like they sit down and have a conversation and then they fight. It's like the gardener and Thanos are sitting down in this lovely garden and he's like, "You've come to take my stone, haven't you?" And Thanos is like, "You." And he's like, "Then you must die." And then I think what Thanos did was use the power gem to accelerate the gardener's powers faster than he could control, and so his own plants kind of killed him. Wasn't that how he did it?
They all turned him into like a log deal. Yeah, they just kind of penetrated him and killed him.
Oh my! It felt like that episode of Batman the Animated Series where Alfred got turned into a tree.
When the fuck did that happen?
You don't remember that?
No.
So Poison Ivy. Okay, so quick break
was
from
that the one?
Thanos.
Wait, no. Wait, was that the one at the spa?
Yeah, Poison Ivy was running
I
this
remember that
spa.
now. Right,
and Alfred and his annoying girlfriend went, and they got turned into trees.
I remember that now. Okay.
Yep.
What the fuck was wrong with that show, man?
It was very scarring. I had one of those like Batman the Animated Series VHSs, the ones that they like had like different villains for each one. I had several of those, and one of the ones that I had was Poison Ivy. And, like, both of the episodes on that were so fucked up. It was that and House and Garden.
Yeah, that one's... I mean, I feel like House and Garden is more fucked up just because it's kids, but they're both pretty harrowing.
I was like, why is Poison Ivy low-key the scariest villain in the animated series?
The first one's pretty harrowing, too. I mean, she, like, essentially date rapes Harvey Dent.
Oh, yeah, that's true. It's true. Yeah. Before he became Two-Face, too, so he was still a good boy.
He just beat up that kid that one time. Anyway, yeah, you're right. Let's continue.
So at this point, Thanos has got himself the Soul Stone. He's got himself the fucking what's the other one? The fucking Power Stone.
He's got the Power Stone and the Time Stone.
Yeah, he's got those 3 stones. He's properly stoned, and he goes out in search of getting even more stoned. And then we go into.
God, I'm so fucking jealous of Thanos right now.
And then we go into he's stoned for infinity, and then he goes into the second issue. And well, first thing he does is he calls up the Collector.
He's like, "Yo, listen."
And he's like, "Yo, I want that reality stone, fool. Like Benicio del Toro, I'm coming for your ass. I want that reality stone." And he's like, "I'm gonna bring you something real cool to trade for it." And the Collector's just like, "All right."
Oh, really? And he's like, "Not if you're gonna talk like that." He's like, "All right, fair enough. Just roll through."
Because what the Collector is really running is sort of a like space pawn shop. So if you bring in something cool, he'll trade you one of the things he's already got.
When we actually get there, it reminded me a lot of that episode of Superman, the animated series, where he got transported with Lobo to that like big space zoo that he ended up putting in his Fortress of Solitude. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
It's like one of my favorite episodes of that.
So he goes to face the Runner, an elder of the universe who is a bit more obscure, and actually I forgot existed before I read this.
This was my favorite. Oh my god. What wild shit.
So, conveniently, the Runner has the Space Stone. It's very convenient that the guy who runs fast got the Space Stone that allows him to basically teleport and think that he's running even faster than he actually was.
Well, I thought it was awesome that he was so convinced that it was like him, you know?
Yeah. Same thing for the Champion. Oh, the guy who's all about strength happened to get his hands on the Power Stone. Very convenient.
Right, well, they only think the thing is amplifying their power, when in reality, it is the power, and their actual independent power really has nothing to do with what they're doing.
Well, the Runner and the Champion were previously already like really, really fast.
I know they were already fast and strong, but like the actual things that they're doing currently, like they wouldn't be able to do without the stones. Like it's not. They are not aware. It's not what they think. It's not like the stones just helping a little bit. It's doing all the work.
Yeah, they're not aware to what degree their skills have been augmented. So there's a battle with the Runner. The Runner is actually doing very well against Thanos, but then Thanos uses the Time Stone and reverts him to a mere baby and takes the Space Stone for himself. Did you want to talk?
Then there's the really awesome fucking reveal, because I mean that's all like really fucked up, and you're like, oh, all of a sudden Thanos is gonna raise the fucking enemy he just defeated. He uses the Time Stone to do that.
He pulled the fucking thing from like the season 1 of New Who, where they like opened up the TARDIS and turned that Slitheen back into an egg, and then took her back to her home planet. That's basically what he did.
It was like that episode of Spider-Man, the animated series, where what was it? A Silverman got turned into a baby, but he was a talking baby who had his memories. That was weird.
Yeah, so did you want to talk more about that fight between Thanos and Runner, since apparently it grabbed you so much?
Because the Runner is not like the other elders. He's not like I like to sit back and peacefully watch the universe. He's a cocky fuck, and I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, him and the Champion are the two like most like rah.
Yeah, but the Champion is also more honorable, where he's like, yeah, I'll challenge you to some combat. Well, and the Runner is also like on the defensive immediately, or he's on the offensive immediately because he knows Thanos is coming after him.
Yeah.
But I liked how cocky he was, and I liked how he essentially was like, Thanos, you don't have shit on me. I'm going to kill you. And Thanos was like, nah, bro. But if Thanos didn't have those stones, he would have been dead. That's what I thought was cool about it, was that had he not already collected those 2 stones, he would have been fucked. Like, it's not like he's going after them in a willy-nilly order. He's picking which stones he gets first before he goes after each particular elder. Obviously, He goes after the Grandmaster last because he's going to be the strongest foe.
Which the Soul Stone, I don't really think he used in the fight against the Champion. I don't remember, though. I read this longer ago than Bill. I read this a couple weeks ago, and he only just read it.
In the fight against the Champion, he didn't have to, because he just tricked him.
He just tricked him. So he
basically
didn't actually
impressed him with his strength. It was more because of the augmented powers that Death gave him that he survived the fight. He mentions that at one point.
Right. Yeah. So the Soul Gem he didn't actually use, but the Soul Gem has always been the most like vague and like nebulous of them anyway. But he does. After that, in sequential order, he uses the Power Stone that he takes from the Champion to overcome the Gardener. He takes the Time Stone that he takes from the Gardener to revert the Runner into a baby. And then we get the bit with the Collector. And so he goes to Benicio del Toro, and he's like, yo, I want that Reality Stone, or gem, which is actually a gem and not a weird cloudy thing, Thor, the Dark World. And he comes up to him and he's like, yeah, I'll trade you one baby Elder of the Universe, which has got to be like the most valuable thing you could possibly own. And the Collector's like, that seems like a pretty sweet deal. And then he trades. And then after Thanos has the Reality Stone, he's like, oh, by the way, you can do this. And he just like fucks with him. And then he turns the Runner back into an adult and leaves. And then the Runner's all pissed at the Collector for trading a gem for him.
Yeah, I thought that was great. Where he's like, "That's so fucked up, man. Like, we're family, and you were just gonna fucking put me in a cage. Like, unreal."
Yeah,
I thought that was great. Definitely loved all that. That was definitely my favorite part. The next part definitely was a fantastic follow-up, though. A great second.
Yeah, so the final opponent he must face is, of course, Jeff Goldblum, the Grandmaster, which, if you're coming into this only being familiar with the MCU, wildly different character.
Yeah, but I still imagine Jeff Goldblum's voice in my head, and imagining more of like an Ian Malcolm voice, it totally worked.
So you want the Mind Stone? Nah, ha ha ha. You must challenge me to a video game. Yes, yeah, that's what they do. Thanos and the Collector, or not the Collector, the Grandmaster. So it's basically like some sort of virtual reality thing where they're both given like mech suits, and they're like on like a map, and they're trying to kill each other. And Thanos, how does he get out of it again? Because the Grandmaster,
he's a robot.
Right. Okay.
The Grandmaster is not facing the real Thanos.
He's facing a robot.
He was just way too cocky to assume that. He just figured Thanos was there, and that was his mistake. That he could.
So while the Grandmaster is facing the robot copy of Thanos, the real Thanos just fucking takes the stone.
Well, he has to do something that I don't remember, which is get past that shield.
Right.
So I'm gonna look up. I'm gonna see what Wikipedia has to say about that.
I will say this one felt a little anticlimactic to me because it seemed like a cop-out. Like, he didn't actually have to best the Grandmaster in the game. He fucking cheated.
Well, he did. No, I disagree, because he did best the Grandmaster in the game, and then the Grandmaster cheated. Thanos' weapons didn't fire.
Okay.
The Grandmaster sabotaged his weapons. And
that's true.
So the Grandmaster cheated first, and then Thanos cheated. Thanos was going to cheat anyway, but the way it plays out, I think, is more satisfying, and that's why I wasn't disappointed. So what happens after that is that Thanos destroys the gaming equipment and kills the Grandmaster and frees the Mind Gems. That's how he gets the gem out of that shield. Because they both have their gems in like these impenetrable shields that won't go away unless they die. So that's what I also thought, that the stakes were pretty good on that end, because they were both like, one of us is coming out of this dead. One will stand, one will fall.
Yeah, and I really liked the Grandmaster's like ploy here, because he was watching all along. So he thought Thanos is going to go get all the other gems, and then he's going to come here, and I'm going to beat him, and I'm going to have all 6 gems. And I'll be the fucking Grandmaster, king of the fucking universe.
Well, I thought it was great that he was like, I haven't done anything until now because I wanted you to do it for me.
Yeah.
I thought that was great.
Grandmaster's great like that.
But he didn't
have a melting stick, sadly.
That I feel is one of the things that's better about the film version is his melting stick.
The presence of the melting stick, yeah.
Yeah. And just the overall Jeff Goldblumness, but overall I think this version's still like awesome. And I hope that they, you know, if we see Jeff Goldblum's Grandmaster again, that they, you know, they work in some more like they work in a little more of his plotting and his and some of the other elements of his gaming that they can play with, because you know he's obviously a gambling fucking game master in Thor Ragnarok, but you know he's obviously a lot more concerned about being a spacey ruler in that, and I want to see what he's like when he's just like on the run, just like fucking with intergalactic beings. I feel like that's what we're gonna get if we see him again.
There's like a throwaway line in that movie where he addresses the fact that he's like millions of years old, but they still haven't gone all in on the elders. They've shown us 2 of them, but they haven't given us, like, I don't know if the elders in the MCU have any of the crazy cosmic powers that they did in the comics. I feel like Jeff Goldblum would have used them if he did. So
we don't see what happens after that little monologue at the end of Thor Ragnarok. We don't see that.
No, but I feel like if he had a bunch of cosmic powers like the real Grandmaster, he probably would have used them to stop Thor and friends from escaping, or at least tried to. So it feels like in the MCU they're just sort of kooky old men
right.
who happen to be functionally immortal and use that to their benefit, but aren't really any powerful beyond that, which everybody in the MCU is kind of scaled back from their comic book counterparts
right.
to make the movies more interesting. So fair enough, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. But let's talk about the end, because I feel like that's ultimately the part that's the real point of it, and it's the thing that makes the whole thing worthwhile in the first place. Without this would have no meat to it. So Thanos arrives and is all like, listen, Death, I got my fucking gems. We are now equal beings. You know, I am master of all reality. You are master of death itself. You know, we are now equal beings. We can sit on the throne of the universe together. And she starts to look like a beautiful woman again, you know, because she's all like, oh yeah, good job, Thanos, awesome. But then she has her servants. Oh, well, basically what happens is Thanos is like, stop having your fucking rat servant talk to me.
Yeah, that's the cool thing. Death never actually speaks in these comics. She has like this giant rodent guy and this like zombie looking guy, these 2 servants, and they speak for her all the time.
Mm-hmm.
She never formally addresses Thanos.
Yeah, and he's all like, you will address me as your mate. And the rat guy's like, nah, man, you're her fucking master now. Like, she's subservient to you. She is but a thread of your existence. You know, she has to address you this way. Thanos proceeds to blow him up.
Yes.
And I thought that was brilliant.
She only has 1 servant in the Infinity Gauntlet story because the rat guy got blown up. He got blown. He got blown up real good. So in his quest to become Lady Death's equal so that they could rule side by side together, he inadvertently became superior and far more powerful than her. And so it's still unbalanced. He's still at a disadvantage. He still can't get her approval or her attention. And he sort of goes off into the palace and sulks. Cue emo music.
Well, you know, he realizes that having once you are all powerful, you know, there's no one there to be equal to you, so you're just alone. It's the ultimate loneliness. And he talks about how that was the great flaw of this being in the past when it was an entity and not 6 stones, that it was the ultimate despairing being of ultimate loneliness, and that's probably why it was better served to be scattered across the universe. However, Thanos thinks that he's better and he's going to do it better because he's got death to fuck when he's got this power. But then, because of the way death perceives it, you know, can't be that way. So, ultimately, he's worse off because he only did it to be with someone, and ultimately he just realizes what he should have already known, and that is that you can't be with anyone if you can control anything and everything. You know? It's just not the way reality works.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting to say that in the comic book where he blows up a rat man.
Yes, yeah.
But you know what? God damn it, it's truth. And and like I said, I think that's why this is good and why this is something that was worth doing. It's not just an excuse to travel across the universe and watch stuff blow up at all. There's a story here.
Yes. I think this is even better than the actual Gauntlet storyline, because that has some of the issues associated with like big event comics. This is just a simple little story that happens to have huge consequences for the universe afterwards, but beautifully told and insanely well written.
Yeah, the writing is strong, the art is strong. There's really nothing about this that lacks, and
yes, which makes for a very interesting review.
Well, I think what we did here is go, this is something nobody talks about now. You should go to it because it's a prime example of Marvel at this time doing really interesting, thoughtful things with their stories.
Yes.
It wasn't always just blow stuff up, nothing formula, which is what everybody thinks until like the 2000s. It's always been a balance of both.
Well, let's be fair. Things did go downhill towards the tail end of the 90s. But this wasn't that time
But
yet.
like I said, there's always been ups and downs, and there's always been a balance of writers trying to tell real stories and being slaves to the formula of the corporations that they work for.
Right.
And I think that's what stuff like this helps people realize.
Right, the corporations, man. Yeah.
Yeah, man. You just gotta get Infinity Stone, man. That's the only way to solve the problem.
That's how you get woke.
Indeed.
The fucking Life Foundation and shit. Is that supposed to be a reference to that fan theory that Life was a prequel to
Oh
the movie?
God, I hope not. Man, I hope not.
Because I don't know if the Life Foundation exists in the comics. I don't know if that's an obscure reference that I'm not familiar with.
Comic book thing, because I feel like it would be like fucking the evil organization if it was.
So yeah, that's.
But anyway,
that's...
we're not reviewing the fucking Venom trailer. We're finishing up our review of Thanos Quest, and
right.
And I am finishing it up by saying, just fucking read it.
I can very briefly review the Venom trailer in one word. It's alright. So yeah, the Thanos Quest.
That was 2 words.
Look, they're slung together into one word. It's lazy, but
Poor literacy is cool.
Poor literacy is cool. So yeah, Thanos Quest. Everyone should read it.
Indeed. And we hope that you enjoyed our discussion of it, and we hope that you enjoy our final Infinity War build-up, although it'll come out after the movie has already been released, and after I've seen it anyway. I know you're not probably seeing it until this, like the beginning of next week.
No, actually, I'm seeing it Friday.
Oh shit! Look at you seeing a movie with the day it comes out.
Yes, it's a rare occurrence.
So I'll be seeing it then, and we'll probably do a video on it sometime next week. I don't know if we're gonna do an SOS on it. I don't know if we're gonna have time. The
problem is Andres is in Japan.
Yeah, so
Japan doesn't get movies at the same time that we get movies. So we'll probably, if he does want to review it on SOS later, that'll be fine, and we'll just probably have done multiple reviews at that point.
Yeah, but you and I will, and if you and I will do something either on this podcast or just as a separate video, just be like, we thought it sucked, or we thought it was amazing, whatever we thought, we will say.
Yeah. I mean, Andres does that shit all the time. He'll do like a review with us and a review with Raph and a review with like Brayden, and it's all about the same movie.
I know, but I hate to do more work than I have to do. So,
and I'm always like, why are you reviewing this movie so many times? Shit.
Yeah, I mean, I just and it's fine that he does that. I'm not criticizing him. I just don't like doing that. Do it once or not at all. No, I have done multiple reviews of things. Just recently, it's just felt unnecessary. Anyway, so.
Even if you're like reevaluating something that you reviewed like a really long time ago, then it makes sense.
Yeah, that's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
So, Dylan, the final thing in our Infinity War DFOS trilogy will be a commentary on this is going to be hard to specify. It is the last season of the Spider-Man the Animated Series, the one from the 90s. But
not the entire season.
It's not the entire season, and not the entire last arc. It is just the stuff that adapts Secret Wars that we are going to be commenting on. All of the Spider-War stuff and everything before that, we're going to ignore. And we're just going to do, like, the 4 or 5 episodes that are actually about Secret Wars. And it's essentially like a proto-animated Marvel Universe Infinity War where all of those characters cross over at once. And they're on an alien planet doing stuff. It's, you know, it's not that storyline, obviously, because it's not Thanos. It's in fact a completely different Marvel cosmic crossover.
Well, let's be real. Let's be real. In the history, in the annals of Marvel comic history, you wouldn't have an Infinity Gauntlet without a Secret Wars first, because the Secret Wars was like the granddaddy of the big event comic thing. So I think it's fair game.
Exactly. So that's what we're going to be discussing. So we hope you enjoy. If you don't. Until next time, everyone.
Sorry.
I'm Bill Worster, a.k.a. Zazubaar.
Super DM64.
It was a podcast.